Stay tuned. Coming up, we discuss how situational awareness may be impacted when the first arriving officer establishes a working command. Hello and welcome to the Situational Awareness Matters Show, episode 360. I'm your host, Rich Gassaway. The purpose of this show is to improve situational awareness and decision making for individuals and teams who work in high risk, high consequence, time compressed environments with changing conditions. The SA Matters mission is simple. We want to help you see the bad things coming in time to prevent bad outcomes. Today's feature segment is sponsored by Gassaway Virtual Training. There are 33 online training programs for you to choose from. Some of the programs are live events presented virtually with interaction and Q&A, and some of the programs are pre-recorded. To learn more, visit samatters.com website and click on the Virtual Training tab. Okay, let's jump into our feature segment as we discuss how situational awareness may be impacted when the first arriving officer establishes a working command. I get asked a lot of questions about what the first arriving company officer should do at a working structure fire. Specifically, the debate revolves around two basic premises. Should the first arriving company officer assume a fixed command position outside the structure and coordinate the activities of the incoming units? Or should the first arriving company officer assume a working command or mobile command position and engage in the firefight with their crew? The short answer is, it depends. Let's explore this issue from the perspective of situational awareness. Essentially, the role of the company officer is to be a frontline supervisor for their company. Sometimes the officer is the most experienced member of the crew. Sometimes they're not. The company officer's primary responsibility is to ensure the safety of their crew and to facilitate the coordination of the crew's activity as part of the overall incident strategy. It is vitally important to have someone designated as the person in charge, though, at every incident. Preferably, this would be explicitly announced so all responders know who is running the show. Even if an incident is minor, it's a good practice to establish and announce who is in command. Some responders criticize the practice of establishing command at smaller incidents, calling it overkill or unnecessary. I'm not advocating for formal command structure is necessary at every small incident. I will, however, advocate for practicing the act of establishing command at all incidents as a means of developing habits that will pay off when your stress level goes up. We are creatures of habit, and there's no environment where we behave more consistently with our habits than when we are under severe stress. Practice becomes the automatic scripted performance under stress. If you develop the habit of establishing command, which is more than simply making a radio announcement, you can develop a valuable habit when things become complex. The heart of the issue to be discussed in this episode is what the first arriving company officer should do physically after establishing command at a working fire. There are essentially two options: operate as working command, or sometimes called mobile command, or assuming a fixed position outside the structure to coordinate the emergency until relieved by someone else. There are several good arguments for why a company officer might want to establish a mobile or working command. Those arguments include the crew is understaffed and the company officer needs to be part of the crew to get the task done safely. Another argument might be the crew is underexperienced, then that the company officer needs to be part of the crew to ensure that inexperienced responders remain safe. Another argument might be the company officer is undertrained and or underexperienced to act as a commander and therefore would assume a role of a company officer on the interior because that is where he or she is most comfortable. Another argument might be the company officer feels an obligation to be part of their crew and to help with the workload. The company officer might feel guilty if he or she did not participate in the hands-on work that needs to be done. Further, the company officer might fear being subjected to ridicule by company members for not helping with the workload. Another possible example is the company officer feels the best thing to do is to join up with the crew and to make an aggressive attack on the fire or an aggressive search for victims. The belief might be there is no time to waste and expedience of task completion is the primary focus and the reason for being part of the company. Or the next arriving officer will assume the command and the fixed command position. There may be a few more, but this kind of puts the good frame around the company officer as mobile commander decision-making mindset. I cannot dispute any of these arguments for why a company officer would assume a working command or mobile command position at an incident. It is not for me to judge this decision, especially when there are so many dynamic factors that can influence the decision. However, I can offer perspective on the situational awareness challenges created by working command or mobile command. The premise is a simple one. In order to effectively perform the duties of command, a person in that role must meet 3 criteria. 1, they must be trained in how to perform the duties of command, and it would be nice to have some experience that goes along with that training as well. 2, they must be hands-off and not performing manual tasks while performing the cognitively demanding role of the incident commander. And 3, they must be in a position to be able to see the big picture. In other words, physically located far enough back away from the scene to be able to see critical clues and cues. To make this point salient, I want to refresh you on the 3 levels of situational awareness, then briefly refresh you on the 3 types of situational awareness we develop and maintain at emergency scenes. Situational awareness is the ability to perceive clues and cues in your environment, to comprehend those clues and cues into meaning, and to make accurate predictions about future events. Formally, this 3-step model is known as perception, understanding, and prediction. If you're a fan of the OODA loop decision-making model, situational awareness is formed in the observation and orient part of the OODA loop. As you perceive, comprehend, and predict, you are actually doing this to form different types of situational awarenesses: personal, company, and incident. Some of the clues and cues captured and processed to form each situational awareness are the same for all 3. Others are not. It is the goal of all responders to develop and maintain all 3, regardless of their position on the emergency scene. Incident situational awareness is the most challenging because it requires forming and maintaining an understanding of dynamically changing, stimulus-rich conditions. In the company position, there is a lot to make sense of. Lots of verbal information and lots of audible information. To form incident situational awareness, a commander must physically be in a position to see and comprehend dynamically changing visual information and hear and comprehend audible information. This takes a lot of cognitive horsepower. It is important to understand that when a company officer chooses to be hands-on, it will impact incident situational awareness. The company officer may be in a great position to ensure the safety of their crew and to help with the heavy physical workload. But working commanders are not in a position to see, hear, and comprehend the dynamically changing, big picture incident conditions. Who's flying the plane? When command is working command, it means the commander is hands-on, engaged in physical activities. It also means no one is commanding the incident, no one is flying the plane. It would be very unnerving if the next flight you were on, the pilot announced that they were going to set the autopilot, leave the flight deck, and serve you drinks and snacks. In this seemingly ridiculous analogy, no one would be flying the plane. The plane would be flown on autopilot. A fireground where the incident command is mobile or working is in the same predicament when the commander is hands-on. The commander isn't flying the plane. For whatever reason they choose to apply, no judgment, there's no one commanding the big picture incident. They're hands-on and they're not seeing the big picture. An incident situation awareness will suffer. It is important to review your standards to ensure that it addresses the roles and responsibilities of the first arriving officer and under what conditions they should assume a fixed command position or operate as working command. If there is an expectation that company officers serve in a fixed command position, it is imperative they are taught how to command, or at least how to command the initial moments of an incident until they are relieved. I once observed a captain trying to command a large and complex incident until he was relieved. He stood there and didn't say or do anything. He was numb and he was overwhelmed. And I offered to assist him, and he simply gave me a blank stare. It was obvious he was suffering from overload and didn't know how to command the initial moments of this very complex call. Fortunately, the relief arrived quickly and the captain was sent off to do company-level duties. When company officers assume working command positions and engage in the firefight, it is vitally important they and everyone else responding to the incident understand the plane is flying without a pilot for a period of time. The next-in officer should conduct a quick and thorough size-up, independent of the first arriving officer's assessment, to ensure it still makes sense for the first-in company to be on the interior. This involves determining the speed at which the incident is moving or conditions are changing, and make some calculations about whether the interior crews can outmaneuver the fire and overwhelm it. If the second-in officer is not comfortable being in command, there is always the possibility that he or she will also engage in hands-on activity, leaving the incident without a commander for even a longer period of time. If the practice is to have all companies engaged and the first arriving chief officer assumes command, then everyone must realize that the plane is going to fly without a pilot until the chief officer arrives. The risk associated with this and the potential situational awareness consequences should not be taken lightly. Since 2007, SA Matters instructors have helped more than 1,200 organizations and 87,000 individuals improve high-risk decision-making, including first responders, industrial workers, military personnel, business leaders, medical professionals, utility workers, highway workers, aviation workers, oil refinery operators, and more. If you or someone you care about works in a high-stress, high-consequence, decision-making environment, then we are here to help to improve their safety and survival and to help them accomplish the most important mission of all. And that is to go home to the ones who love them. Since the start of the pandemic, I've had some amazing opportunities to present my programs on virtual platforms to groups ranging in size from 6 to 400. And recorded playbacks of those programs have been viewed more than 22,000 times. Here's hoping the new year and the introduction of a COVID vaccine will reduce the number of cases and return us back to some form of normalcy for live in-person training. And as you will see from the upcoming list that I'm about to share, Things are looking up. On February 17th, I'll be facilitating the Minnesota Virtual Training Series. This program will feature Dr. Chad Weinstein talking about fire service leadership from the inside out. On March 4th, I'll be facilitating the Minnesota Virtual Training Series featuring Brian Ward talking about barn boss leadership. On March 8th, I'll be presenting, hopefully live, Situational Awareness program for the National Electrical Testing Association's Power Test Conference in Orlando, Florida. On March 16th, I'll be facilitating the Minnesota Virtual Training Series, this time featuring Chief Alan Lewis talking about recruitment and retention. March 23 through 25, I'll be presenting a live, hopefully in-person situational awareness program for the Anchorage, Alaska Fire Department. On April 12, I'll be facilitating the Minnesota Virtual Training Series, this time featuring Fire Chief Jerry Strike talking about difficult people and their organizational impacts. On April 23rd, I'll hopefully be presenting live a situational awareness program at the Fire Department Instructors Conference in Indianapolis, Indiana. On April 26th, I'll be facilitating the Minnesota Virtual Training Series. This program will feature John Kreisel talking about how he lost both of his legs in an IED explosion and how he has managed through the impact of that event. On May 2, I'll be presenting a live, hopefully in-person situational awareness program for the Hilltop Hose Company in Pennsylvania. Thank you to the organizations that have allowed me to offer your members virtual training, and special thanks to the organizations who have postponed programs in 2020 and are patiently waiting to be rescheduled. If you're interested in hosting a virtual program or a live event, just click on the Contact Us tab at the top of the SA Matters homepage, and I will give you a call. Finally, remember to check out the show notes for how to subscribe to our newsletter and how to follow us on social media. There we share ideas about how to improve situational awareness, how to make better decisions under stress, and how to improve the skills of critical thinking and resilient problem solving. Well, that's it. Episode 360 of the Situational Awareness Matters show is complete. Thank you for sharing some of your valuable time with me today. I really appreciate your support of the SA Matters mission. Be safe out there, and may the peace of the Lord and strong situational awareness be with you always.
You've been listening to the Situational Awareness Matters show with Dr. Richard Gasaway. If you're interested in learning more about situational awareness, human factors, and decision-making under stress, visit his website, samatters.com. If you're interested in booking Dr. Gasaway for a program, or if you would like to be a guest on his show, click the Contact Us tab at the top of the homepage.